Hi, football fans. Collin Sherwin alongside Seth Varnadore. I'm in Mississippi. Seth, you're back in Florida.
That's right.
But we're in new locations this week. I'm not at my house, and Seth is in a new office that's getting repainted. So
That's
the
right.
backgrounds might look different, but the games will remain the same. We got three games on the board. We will start with Texas A&M taking on Auburn. The Aggies are -5.5 on the Plains. 70% of the action and 75% of the wagers are on Jimbo Fisher's team, who is still somehow in the mix for a possible berth in the college football playoff, though they're going to need a lot of help, and they're going to need to pound the crap out of Auburn this week to even have a shot at it. Total is 48.5, and right now 81% of the action and 90% of the bets are on the over. Seth, what have you seen so far out of these two teams as we dive in here and towards the end of the season? Probably a different level of season than any of us have seen, and how's that going to play? Teams with different numbers of games, different levels of health, different rosters. I mean, this is sometimes we're just making it up on the fly here. It looks like too.
Yeah, and I think that to your point, that makes it tougher on like the playoff committee, but I think it does help a little bit when you're looking at comparing teams in the same conference because they're all playing the same level of teams and the same teams a lot of times. So you look here, Texas A&M is better in pretty much every metric. The only one they lag behind a little bit is the available yards metric. Auburn's a little bit better, but that may be not factoring out garbage time. Yards per play factors out garbage time. Neither team is very explosive. Texas A&M likes to slow it down and hold the ball. Auburn wasn't in a big rush last week against Alabama either. And the Auburn defense is not the Auburn defense you're used to seeing. We'll start with the Auburn offense. They're going to try to run the ball. We're not going to go too much of the run game stuff. They're going to try to run the ball in a bunch of different ways, gap schemes, zone schemes. I think what you have to watch for is their best part of their offense is rushing the ball, and Texas A&M defense is good at stopping the run. That's kind of where the better part of their defense is as well. So that's going to be a good matchup. They'll do some RPO stuff. They're out this big dude out here. They also try to run him on a wheel late in the game that made me want to throw up as I'm trying to get a backdoor cover from Auburn, and they're trying to sneak him out on a play action, running past Alabama's defensive backs. But they had some success throwing the ball. Anthony Schwartz, as we talked about last week, is very explosive. Patrick Nix, or they're calling Patrick Nix, Bo Nix, has talent. Like he's making tight window throws. They do a good job with play action, but these are the things that you can't clean up. Right here, this is 3rd and 3. He's rolled out. They've got this guy basically screening off here. You just want to throw it to this guy right away to get the first down. For some reason, he looks downfield, holds it, throws it late, got no shot and made the completion. The play is designed to get this quick first down, and he doesn't take it. And then here, trusting your arm a little bit too much, making a bad read, getting undercut for an interception. That's what you worry about when you're betting Auburn. How consistent is the quarterback going to be? Texas A&M annihilated a pretty for a lot of games this year, a decent LSU offense. Made it tough on the quarterback, got pressure. You see here a pick six. They're not afraid to bring pressure. I think maybe the thought around the country about their defense has kind of been skewed by their games against Alabama and Florida, who both scored at will, but it turns out they score at will against anybody. Texas A&M's not bad at stopping the run. South Carolina's a team that's been able to run the ball a little bit, and they do a pretty good job. Both teams are pretty good in the turnover margin. But I think this is kind of the weak point, right? Or the inconsistency you see sometimes is Texas A&M offense. Kellen Mond, they kind of go as he goes. When they involve him in the run game, he's obviously a very athletic guy that can make plays with his feet. They've got a good back, and their offensive line has done a great job. I think they've given up single-digit sacks on the season. I think their offensive line's kind of underrated nationally. They do a pretty good job as a group. Mond has time where he looks really good. He's got a good tight end there at number 85. And you'll see there's times where he sits back there and can make a ton of throws. They do Jimbo always does a good job designing stuff up. You get a throw back to the tight end who you're trying to get the ball to. They do a good job here with like a little man beater coming back across and then getting the back out of the backfield. So one thing that you saw Alabama do. Here's another example of Mon's athleticism. One thing you saw Alabama do last week, besides just throw it to their unbelievable receiver. Here's another one to the back. They throw the ball to the back. They throw the ball to their tight ends. Right here, you get a little pump and go. Get a guy wide open. Auburn's defense has been pretty poor this year. Here's a tight end coming across. I think this is called like a pylon play. It's a pretty interesting concept. And then they're able to run the ball out of kind of a funky formation and bust one on the Auburn defense. And then straight man-to-man, easy win. Texas A&M doesn't have those Alabama receivers, but they have the back. They're kind of Alabama light, right? But they have a good offensive line and a good running back. And when Mond is on, they're really tough to stop.
So you said to me earlier in the season that you thought Bo Nix was either one of the dumbest players in America or one of the most poorly coached players in America.
The meter's starting to turn towards dumb as a brick after a couple of those things. But I still don't know because, is he taking risk because he doesn't get chances? Like, I think of a guy you and I both know. I'm like, if Kerwin Bell had that guy, he'd be there'd be guys running open. He'd look awesome. So, like, is it that, or is it that, like, it's a simple, hey, this is a first down. This is all we're trying to do. And you hold the ball, try to throw in a double coverage, and then come down late and throw it. That's on him.
Let me throw this out here before we get to our picks.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be an available quarterback who's had a severe leg injury, but's going in the portal. He doesn't really fit what Malzahn likes to do because Malzahn likes a bigger guy who can run the ball a little bit more, obviously. But if you're trying to run some of this, anything that throw for Auburn, I'm just saying, as a 1-year filler, Mackenzie Milton might not be the worst choice in the world.
I would advise him to stay away. What's the last quarterback they've really developed there? Cam Newton came in as a finished product.
Right, for sure.
So that's not. Yeah, but I don't know. It would be interesting, that's for
sure. Because we know Milton's looking for. So anybody's got a P5 job open, that's going to be something that people are going to be looking at, including Kyle Trask possibly at Florida. All right, moving on. 5.5 is the number. Seems like you like A&M here.
Yeah, I do. I don't think you can trust. You can't trust Auburn. It seems like I tried to trust them last week. Didn't work out. I just don't. I think A&M has obviously got a lot to play for. Auburn just got housed by their rival last week. If you get good Kellen Mond, I think you win by a lot more than 5.5. And I think you're going to get a pretty decent Kellen Mond against a bad Auburn defense. So yeah, I lean A&M minus 5.5.
I'm not a huge Kellen Mond guy, but I'll give this kid. There are a couple of guys in college football. Sometimes you go, that kid's just tough as nails. Kellen Mond is one of those kids that's just tough. Like, he takes hits, he gets back up, he plays football. Like, he's a really, really tough kid. I don't know if he's an NFL guy or not, but that's one tough son of a bitch.
Yeah.
We move on to Iowa, Illinois. Kind of a weird game here. We're not too sure what's happening here, but somehow Iowa has crept back into the top 25 this season. Iowa is a 13.5 point favorite on the road. Total is 51. We don't have bet splits for this game, unfortunately, because of a small glitch in the matrix right now. But the Hawkeyes on the road against Lovie Smith. Iowa's Iowa, probably the most consistent team of the 21st century. Of all the Power 5 teams, you know exactly what you're going to get every single week. Is Kirk Ferentz the longest tenured coach in FBS right now?
I believe so. I think he's the last guy that was hired in the 90s.
That's crazy. So, yeah, you know exactly what you're going to get. Illinois probably a little bit better this year than we thought they might be, but still not any great shakes. What have you seen on the tape between these two?
So this is when I first saw it, I thought that this was really low, and that Iowa, because I've seen them in the top 25, obviously, and I've seen a lot of the advanced metrics guys really like Iowa. I've seen them in the top 15 for some of these advanced metrics guys. So that kind of, okay, well, there's something here, obviously. I haven't watched a ton, but You dig into the numbers a little bit, you can see their defense is really good, but their offense is not great at anything in particular. The talent is actually pretty similar, surprisingly, between Illinois and Iowa. And I think some of the Illinois numbers could be lower on offense because they were out without their starting quarterback for at least one game. But their defense is really bad. So it's kind of, is this where Iowa kind of gets right? They've showed the ability to score points. They put up, I think, 40 on, I think may have put up 40 or close to 40 on Penn State. So, Penn State's not great, but they showed the ability that they can score points. Illinois has kind of been tough this year in that department. The numbers aren't great for Iowa, but I do like the way their quarterback throws the ball. I think he's a pretty young guy, redshirt freshman maybe. And they have some tight ends. Shocker, Iowa's got some tight ends that can play, but they've got some guys that can make plays down the field. Their offensive line was rated top 10 by PFF, if you put any stock into that. Sometimes when it proves my point, I put stock into it. When it doesn't, I don't believe in it. But it's a pretty good measure for a lot of times. And they consider this offensive line a top 10 one. You see guys can make plays. They're going to use play action. They're going to try to run the ball. They just haven't been stellar, but they've been winning games. And you see the Illinois defense here is not great. This is against Nebraska, missing tackles. You'll see this often. They're not a great tackling team. And then against Rutgers here, similar stuff. This is not a great defense. And I think they just lost one of their linebackers.
Come on.
They lost a linebacker for the season and an offensive lineman for the season. Oh, this is like Rutgers. This is like and one mixtape for Rutgers this game. It was unbelievable.
I mean, come on.
So this is what you see this, and you're like, okay. I believe this is the game that Illinois starting quarterback didn't play, but still, he don't play defense. Like those two guys just hit each other.
Come on.
So when I watch, and then we get to Iowa's. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Illinois' defense, but Iowa's defense is really aggressive. You saw they were top 10 in like every metric. They'll get after passer calls, turnovers. They'll bring blitzes. You see there a big loop. It's hard to see, but if we go back to the beginning, you see he's coming all the way around here and looping around.
And why are we showing video against a junior high school team like Penn State?
Well, and then you got a pick six there. It could always be. It could be a middle school team like the Wolverines this year.
Here's that Clifford who just got picked off on a screen pass.
Yes, and the guy housed it.
It's so bad.
Yeah. Again, but I think you can see they're aggressive. They do some weird stuff. With this pick, you see this is a guy that he shows and then he kind of drops off. So they do some interesting stuff on defense. That guy actually goes back for a touchdown there, which might be the biggest point against Ohio State's case if that guy's scoring touchdowns in the Big Ten. But Illinois is able they can run the ball all right, and they have some explosiveness. If you go back to the chart before, they're able to throw the ball down the field. I believe this is Daniel Imatorbhebhe, and Brandon Peters is the quarterback. He's shown flashes of being able to push the ball down the field a little bit. They ran the ball and put up a ton of points on Nebraska, which, I don't know if that means anything. It doesn't mean as much now as it used to, but they have the ability to kind of make plays. I just think Iowa's defense is just too good, and they're not going to be able to make those kind of plays. And we saw kind of how bad Illinois can be defensively. Even a kind of below average Iowa offense, I think, is going to be able to move the ball and score. I kind of like Iowa, but it could be an underplay too. I think over under is 51. Could be an underplay as well.
It is 51 right now. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if you're gonna bang it, definitely under. Definitely seems like the right play to make.
I could see Illinois getting shut out in this game or scoring less than 10. So if you don't think the Iowa offense is great, well, that screams under to me. So I think under might be a good play there, under 51.
Illinois does go fast. They don't go very far, but they do go fast, and so pace is something you do have to worry about. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I don't. This is a pretty bad team. If you had told me Lovie Smith would still be employed and have a triple-digit defense in 2020, I would not have believed it. But for somehow a defensive guy who goes to the college game just has not been able to put a defense.
And they just lost. They just lost one of their starting linebackers for the season. So It's not getting any better.
It's not getting any better. He's probably going to get another year, though, because who are you going to get if you're Illinois?
Yeah.
I mean,
Monken,
tough
alleged.
job.
There's some Monken's an Illinois native.
Really?
That's
Okay.
that's a wild theory somebody threw out. So,
Interesting. We move on to the game of the year, and you can have your Clemson Notre Dame friends, but the true game of the year is the Brigham Young University Cougars against the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, live in Conway, South Carolina, steps from Myrtle Beach. Um, we have schedules like right now. You can look online and you can see college football games scheduled into the mid 2030s. This one gets booked on 2 days' notice. This is what college football is supposed to be. Right now, as we look, BYU is a 10.5-point favorite on the road against Coastal. Total is 61.5. The Mormon Manziel, Zach Wilson on the road against a Coastal team that has held their own in the Sun Belt this year. Still, in contention, possibly with a win in this game. If they would win this one and Cincinnati loses one of their likely 2 matchups to Tulsa, I think there's got to be some discussion about Coastal possibly getting the spot for the New Year's Six Bowl, and it would be deserved. But they are an underdog for a reason.
yeah.
I've been super high on BYU all year. I think this is the best BYU team I've seen in a long time, and you and I were both super out on them after we saw them fall with a third-string Romney brother throw into a third-string Romney brother in Tampa a couple of years ago. But they have really turned it around. They're physical. They have some gaps on defense, but they're physical and they're able to get after the passer. And I think they could score, and their offensive line controls games. So what do you see in this one? And I really wish it wasn't with the hook. I like this under 10 a lot more than over 10. That's for sure.
Obviously, we haven't had as much time to get ready for this one, but when you look just at the pure numbers, this is like legitimately one of the games of the year. BYU is unbelievable numbers-wise, offensively and defensively. Not great on third downs, but like way above average. But they're top 2 in offensive defense yards per play, number 1 in available yards on offense. Now the caveat is they haven't really played anybody, but the numbers are what the numbers are. Coastal Carolina is not like they're playing in the SEC. So, but both sides great by the numbers. By the numbers, this is going to be a tight game. But there's a couple things on film that would concern me on both sides. So BYU is great wide zone team. They've been able to run the ball on everybody. They ran it down our collective throats against Navy when we picked against them in week 1. And those offensive line can move people. The backs understand the read and make one cut and go, and they are physical and break tackles. I think this back here possibly is averaging like the most yards before contact and possibly the most yards after contact. So they're just running through people. Wilson, good athlete. He can run. They don't call him the Mormon Manziel for nothing. He can make stuff happen with his feet. It's not there. Gets outside the pocket and throws a seed, 40 yards downfield, right on the sideline. Right here in the hole in the zone, money. And then they'll use that run game to set up play action to take shots down the field. And their receivers go up and make contested catches. Against Boise was able to get to the quarterback a little bit, which is kind of the first time I saw any kind of problems up front. But there hasn't been much of that, so that's kind of minimal. Coastal is actually pretty good up front, especially for kind of a Sun Belt team. They've got some guys that can go. They got a D tackle there that can move. I think they've got a guy with like 8 sacks on the end. They got invited to the Senior Bowl, so they got some guys that can play up front here to kind of show coverage, come and swarm against a pretty good App State team. Then here, turn and run, man coverage. But there was some stuff against App State that was a little concerning when you watch it looking towards BYU. Here's a wide zone, getting a lot of movement, getting vertical. Here's another wide zone, blocked up pretty well. What they don't allow is a lot of explosive runs, but they're not great against the run. And that's where BYU is pretty good. And then here, just one-on-one wins. That would concern me if I'm a Coastal fan or a Coastal backer. The BYU's defense, what they did a lot last year is they didn't blitz a ton, And that's why I was so down on it. I watched him play like 3-man fronts and not blitz anybody a ton last year, and it was mind-boggling. They're a little more aggressive this year. They'll play some 4-man fronts like they do here, but they're going to make you beat them. They're not going to give you a ton of stuff over the top. Here they kind of bring a pressure, and then the guy that gets blocked kind of backs out as a spy. So once he sees he's going to get blocked, he kind of backs out. Or the other one, right? You see you're going to get blocked, you back out and become a spy. They do some pretty interesting stuff. They do blitz a little bit more than they did in the past. They bring pressure. Here you're bringing pressure, but you give up a shot. And then I think what's going to be key this week is how you defend the option. I didn't think they defended it great against Navy. I thought Navy ran it poorly. The few that Navy ran well, they were able to pick up some yardage on. And especially this one in the second half here, when they put in the backup quarterback that was better at the triple, they were able to pick up some yards running the triple. Coastal Carolina.
That was 10 weeks ago too. That game was 10 or 11 weeks ago at this point too.
But what concerns me about that is you have the whole offseason to get ready for Navy, or not the whole offseason, but you have a while to get ready for Navy, and now you got 2 days to get ready for this. So if you weren't unbelievable at, now the numbers were pretty good. But Coastal's better than Navy at the triple option and better at the option game. You see here, and they run it a bunch of different ways. It's not like they run it out of one formation one way. You'll see here, this could be a triple. This could just be a read. Right here, motion, come back around. This is kind of what, if this game was scheduled weeks out and both teams had time to prepare for it, I'd feel a lot better about BYU. But this is not an easy offense to get ready for in 2 days, and probably 2 days where you're not practicing. They're not going to be hitting full speed. It's going to be a lot of kind of walk through stuff, and the coaches got to get all this stuff ready. And they do a variety of things. Here's RPOs. So they have a better passing game, right? Here's another RPO. So it's kind of like Navy. You add Navy, and then you give them a really sound passing game with athletic guys at receiver. The one guy that you saw caught up the post touchdown has the Florida State record for touchdowns in the season in high school and second for career touchdowns. He had 32 touchdowns his senior year in 7A football in Florida. He's a really good player.
How the hell did he end up at Coastal?
I think him and his quarterback went there as a package deal. But number 6, Javon Hiley, really good player. So they got some guys that can play there. This game is really tough because of how late it is and understanding. I thought BYU. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. But what gives me pause is how much are they going to be able to practice and get ready for that offense, which is funky. Coastal's offense is different. It's not a normal college offense.
So let's give some stats here. Right now, Coastal, Grayson McCall has 174 attempts this season, 10 yards per attempt. That's really good for a passer. And that's being set up by all that triple game and then, pulling it, throwing into RPO actions.
And then you'll get those safety
shots over the top.
And if you want, a deeper look at it, I've done a deeper look at their offense. And you'll see the safeties are playing like they're playing Navy. Safeties are flying up for a run, and now you got these guys that are better athletes than what Navy has and a better quarterback than what Navy has making these plays. It's a really interesting mix of new school stuff and old school triple option stuff.
McCall also has 20 touchdowns and 1 pick this year. That's sick. Both these teams, if you haven't watched a lot of them this year, I've only seen a couple of games. I've seen most of BYU, but I've only seen a couple of games from Coastal. Both teams are 7-1-1 against the spread this year, 9-0 straight up, but they're both 7-1-1 against the spread. So they've been covering as well. It's not just that they're winning; it's that they're beating expectations week after week. I think it's going to be a hell of a football game. Yeah. And this could be one of those that, especially for the group of 5, we might see more and more of this in years. Like, if you've got a Boise State that's undefeated at 10-0, and week 11 they have a late bye, and Memphis is the leading team in the American. Let's match them up late and see if we can get an extra quality win in there and try and slide into the Final Four. I don't think either one of these teams can get into the Final Four, but I think BYU with a win probably locks up a spot in the New Year's Six.
Yeah.
And if Coastal wins, they're going to give themselves an argument for getting the Group of 5 spot in the New Year's Six as well.
I would think that. Would you think that if you look at it, would they have the best argument if they win, beating BYU, and then your next bet? What's the next best win between the two? Maybe Louisiana, who Coastal beat, who went and beat Iowa State at the beginning of the year. You know, they have a really good case, and that'll be a really interesting game. It's a game where I could, you know, it could be super high scoring, or it could be, you know, both defenses, because both defenses are statistically good. So I think it's going to be who can run the ball better, and it seems like BYU's got the better offensive line, but I don't know. It should be a really entertaining game in the least.
Who would have thought that in the second to last, what originally was going to be the last week of the season, this was originally scheduled to be the final regular season week, this was actually originally championship week, before the season started. Who would have thought that in championship week, BYU versus Coastal Carolina would have been the best game on the board? So
if Coastal wins, do you think Cincinnati tries to get a Pac-12 team then? Because they don't really have much incentive now, but if Coastal wins, you have some incentive because you might get knocked out of that G5 spot.
Yeah, I look, Cincinnati should play that anyway. If I see these arguments from fans of Group of 5 teams, it was from, you know, UCF a couple years ago. It's from Cincinnati now. They're like, oh well, why should we have to jump through all of these hoops? Well, you're in the Group of 5. Yeah. That's how this works. Like, if you have to go above and beyond, you have to prove things that the benefit of the doubt is given to the Power 5. It's not fair. It's also the reality on the ground. Like, if you want to play for stuff that matters, you're going to have to jump through hoops like this. So yeah, take on a Pac-12 team. Yeah. I don't think they will, and I do think it sucks that if I was Mike Oresco, I would probably cancel the regular season Cincinnati-Tulsa game and just not make them play twice. I just cancel the game. These are the two best teams in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
Do what John Swofford did with the ACC, which was, all right, our two best teams are Clemson and Notre Dame. Let's get this over with as quickly as possible. Yeah. Let's lock it up and then let's play. And then I think that's what they need to do for Cincinnati and Tulsa. So we'll see what they do. We are done. Thanks for listening. We will get this posted as quickly as possible. Enjoy the games this weekend. Football. Hooray.
Yeah.